This is a sad time for all people. We have suffered a loss that cannot be weighed. For me, it is a deep personal tragedy. I know that the world shares the sorrow that Mrs. Kennedy and her family bear. I will do my best. That is all I can do. I ask for your help and God's.
Finally, we received information he was in the Texas Theater. We went to this location, surrounded it from the outside, and then about 8 officers, including one FBI agent and some uniform officers, went into the location. Officer Ennium McDonald was interrogating his third person when, as he approached him, the suspect jumped up, struck him in the face, and yelled, "This is it," and made a grab for a pistol which was inside his shirt down in his belt. The officer and the suspect both began to grapple for the pistol. The pistol trigger was pulled one time, but the gun misfired. By then, at the officer's call, the rest of us got into the situation and subdued the suspect, disarmed him, handcuffed him, put him in the car, went to the station, and turned him over to Captain Fritz in the Homicide Bureau.
Against the wall. All right, these people have given me a hearing without legal representation or anything.
You shoot the president?
I didn't shoot anybody, no, sir.
Get on there, boys.
Well, I can't say this early, but I would say that he was in the state of mind at the time of the shooting that he was when I saw him about an hour later. He was certainly in a state of emotional collapse at the time of the shooting and probably out of his mind.
So did you say why he did?
I've known him about 10 years, and he's a very likable fellow. He's well-liked in Dallas, and is a very law-abiding citizen, and I'm satisfied that it wouldn't have made any difference whether the president was Republican or Democrat. He would have been upset about it in the same way.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Arietti, would you say that Jack Rubinstein and Lee Oswald were schizophrenics?
Well, I'll tell you. Of course, I have to rely on the fragmentary information which has appeared in the paper. From what I have read, I have reached the conclusion that they are not. It seems to me that they are not schizophrenic. Certainly, they are abnormal people. I would say that they are psychopathic persons. They have something in common, and in certain other respects they are completely different. I would say that of the two, Rubinstein is the simpler person. He is rather childlike, immature, impulsive. Both of them wanted to give a mission to their life. Oswald is much more complicated. I think he also was looking for a fulfillment, but he also had some paranoid trends who had a deeper root. But I do not think from the information that we have that either of them could be classified as legally insane. They are both aware of what they were doing, although of course they were not aware of their unconscious motivation.
You were asking me whether or not we would seek a change of venue in the case. I have been considering that, and in view of some of the statements that the district attorney has made in the last few days, he seems to be trying to stir up prejudice against the defendant, particularly making the statement that the defendant had lived neighbors with Oswald. Of course, there's no truth in that at all. Of course, he used the term stone's throw. I have no idea what a stone's throw means, but he's created an unfair atmosphere, and we might very well have to ask for a change of venue. Dallas is a very fair-minded city, but at the same time, everyone is very emotional about this thing. They're very disturbed about the president being assassinated in our city, and they're very disturbed about Oswald, the communist, having been assassinated here. So it very well might be that we'll have to ask for a change of venue. The case, if venue is changed, might be changed to some place 200 or 300 miles from here, where the Dallas newspapers do not circulate.
It's going to become increasingly important. You look at the television pictures, and I bet there's not a one of you that can tell me right now which finger this man used, whether that hand was in spasm at the time shooting with the second finger, and the rest of these events. Those are becoming increasingly important. It's not just seeing it on TV. This is the gist of this lawsuit, those 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds or 4 minutes or whatever it was there. And that is the thing that was seen by this juror and a number of jurors. Prior to the difficulty with Oswald?
Well, I knew him for about a week before about Oswald.
During this time, was there, could you give us any idea as to Jack Ruby's personality?
Well, Jack, he was the nervous type. I know he used to make me nervous just to be around him. And he was always nice to me. He treated me well.
Did you see Jack Ruby on the day of President Kennedy's assassination?
No, I didn't.
Did you see him just prior to his assassination of Oswald?
No.
Have you heard from Jack Ruby since he's been in jail?
No, not directly.
Do you have any idea at all as to why Jack Ruby did what he did?
I really couldn't say. I just don't know.
Did he say anything at that time concerning what his future actions might be?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you say you felt the jury has made up its mind? Yes, I think they've made up considerable for their conclusion that the deliberative process in the jury is no different than that of spectators at an athletic event or in a moving picture theater or whodunit. Now, the judge, of course, admonishes not to make up your mind until the last word is said, until you've heard my charge. But it's an impossible thing for the human mind to do. And I sense that they've had their conclusions by their now restlessness. And to impose on a tired jury is the height of trial lawyer's folly. I think that there's such a thing as the rhythm and timing of the lawsuit, as well as the substantive and probative evidence that's been abused. What was the rhythm of this one? Well, it was at a high point last night with Dr. Guttmacher, and it was swinging along well and all pointed toward that. That was the climax. We
we built with the EEGs and with the psychological on up to his putting it all together and putting the pieces into context. And when he did, if we would bring lay testimony in today and after that, then I think that they wouldn't appreciate it. And that's the reason we folded out on the problem of this jury. This is a good jury to try any other case in any other city. I think it's impossible for these human beings to try this case in Dallas. I still feel that way.
Most of us want to know if you, as a lawyer, fully expect to get Jack Ruby off.
I certainly do. I think he should. And I certainly do. That's what we've pleaded, and that's what we intend to do. If we didn't, we could change our plea at any time to guilty.
Is that a possibility?
That's a definite impossibility. That's one thing we're certain of. Okay.
I'm going to make one statement and no more. I am a very positive person, as you know. I have had the courage to stand up and the guts to fight for American way of life. I came here as a spectator because I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald should have been in this courtroom and having a trial of his own. And as a mother, I thought maybe I might find some sort of a clue and help my investigation. But now that I have been subpoenaed, my dander is up. My dander is up. And it's going to stay up if I have to stay here till the rest of the trial. This is what I don't like, is to be pushed.
I hope somebody's looking. Cut it now. Looking fun? Coming up on the steps. No taking on Stoker. Pull up there. Cut it.
Do you believe that Jack Ruby was able to distinguish right from wrong the day he shot Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yes,
You do believe so? Do you believe he has psychomotor epilepsy?
No, sir. I do not believe he has psychomotor epilepsy.
All right, we used to pull up the handle many times since I've known him for years. They've been around together. He used to talk and go into little rages and tantrums and holler, scream, and our few that were around with him couldn't do much with him. We used to let him go up and rant and do a lot of yelling and howling, but as a person he was a pretty classy boy. He was always good with his money, and but we couldn't, he was too tough to control.
Was it your assessment, Mr. Bellline, that you had made your points to this jury and that it would belabor them and perhaps antagonize them if you presented more testimony?
Yes, I think so. I think you've all observed that the jury is getting restless. They want to get home. Now, this is not so bad if any lack of kindness or appreciation that they don't have patience, but there's a limit to human endurance and the capacity to follow testimony.
There's one question that has, I think, been on the minds of most of us, and that is, do you expect to get Jack Ruby off?
I certainly do. The only reason I thought was to give you a more extended answer, but we're just about at the point of argument, and I don't think that I should. If and when Jack is acquitted here, he'll go into a hospital. I can assure you of that.
Confident of a conviction in this case at this time?
I'm not confident of anything. The jury can turn him loose or give him the chair, or somewhere in between.
Well, as a prosecutor, Mr. Wade, do you have any personal feelings about asking death in the electric chair for this man?
None whatever.
If there's a hung jury, you think it'll come back to Dallas for trial?
Don't think about a hung jury after 4 weeks, so we'll worry about that if it happens.
In his unrestrained comments on the trial of Jack Ruby in Dallas, the chief counsel for the defendant made intemperate and abusive statements about the trial court and the entire Dallas community. The effect was to question the integrity of the court and the jury. The canons of ethics provide that a lawyer having any justified grievance against a member of the judiciary should lodge that grievance with the appropriate authorities and not indulge in public defamation. Mr. Belli should know this. That he should so flagrantly disregard the code of professional ethics and his oath as an attorney is a discredit to him and to his profession. The American Bar Association has received several complaints concerning Mr. Belli's conduct. These complaints have been referred to the American Bar Association's Committee on Grievances for appropriate investigation and action.
Can you tell us what your first step will be now that you've taken the case?
File a motion for a rehearing, a new trial before Judge Brown in Dallas. That has to be done within 10 days of the date of conviction. It will either be done tomorrow or it will be done Monday. I'm preparing a motion in just a few minutes. I shall send it to Dallas to be presented in the event the lawyers who have heretofore represented Mr. Ruby do not file such a motion. I'm trying to get in touch with those lawyers now and will as soon as I get through with the news media.
Mr. Fuller, I understand you're getting ready to catch a plane to go down to Mexico. Are you going down to confer with Mr. Belli?
That's a good idea. No, I'm going down to establish an alibi for Mr. Ruby.
Can you tell us further what you'll be doing down there? A little bit more specific.
Actually, I'm trying a child custody case in Mac Alley.
Mr. Foreman, are there any certain conditions connected with this case and the reason you're taking it?
Well, the condition, when I allocate my time, and it's pretty much in demand every minute of it, Saturdays, Sundays, day and night, I try to place it where I'm needed the most. That's why I think the Lord leaves me here, and I don't know anybody that needs a lawyer, whether it's I or not. Whether he needs me, I mean. But at any rate, the theory of our jurisprudence is that a man's entitled to a lawyer of his choice, and Mr. Ruby, Jack Ruby, wanted me. And since he does want me, and since he needs me worse than anybody else I know in America at this moment, I accepted the case.
I never was so happy to get back to San Francisco in all my life as when I came back. Jack Ruby has the right to have any counsel that he wants in the world. A man has the right to his own choice of doctor, of lawyer, or priest. It's a sacred relationship. I understand that he's hired Percy Foreman of Houston, and from Percy Foreman's reputation, he'll not want for adept counsel in the trial court or in the appellate court. I'm not going to answer anything in the letter that was sent to me by Jack Ruby and his family, because Jack and I are not on an equal basis. And I'm condemned to the electric chair, and I'm a free man and a free lawyer. I'd be a damn poor lawyer if I would debate with my client, and particularly after I've said that my client is sick, and I say it again today that he is sick.
Mr. Consul, what good does a reversal do a man who committed murder on nationwide television?
Well, the first thing it does, of course, it takes away the fear that he'll be electrocuted, because if we had lost here and lost in any other appeals we had, he would have gone to the electric chair. Secondly, it gives him a chance for a new trial
and a new trial now based on murder without malice, which is murder without premeditation, to put it in other terms, which would carry a maximum penalty in Texas of 5 years. And since he's already served 3 years, it's very possible that even if convicted of murder without malice, he would probably have almost no time to serve.
He might just go free?
He might just go free.
Were any of the Supreme Court decisions involved in the reversal?
Yes, they were. I think the court cited 2. They cited the recent Estes case, Billy Saul Estes, and the television cameras that were used in that courtroom, and the Sam Shepard case. We relied very heavily on the Sam Shepard case to indicate that when a trial becomes so publicity conscious and so filled with newspapers and other media and not controlled by the judge, that this can have an adverse effect on the defendant. And that's why they have ordered a trial to be held outside of Dallas and away from that influence for the next round.
There's been rumors that you have said you would accept a 5-year sentence, and Henry Wade said he would accept a life sentence. Is there any...
As I say, I have not talked to Mr. Wade, so I don't know what he has said, and I will tell you what I have told some other people, and that is that in the original trial, I argued to the jury that I thought at most it was a murder without malice case, which carries a maximum of 5 years, and that if someone asked us in authority if we would take 5 years, I would give it very serious consideration and confer with Jack and the family and the other attorneys and make a decision then.
I think the change of venue... What do you think about the reversal decision?
I'm delighted. I'm very happy to learn that there are fair-minded judges and who've taken the time to look over all of the paraphernalia that was filed to give Jack a reversal. And I'm sure if we get into another court, Jack will be a free man.
But in your opinion, at this time, is Jack a sane person?
Yes, he is sane. I think he was insane the day the president was shot. I think it just threw him into a certain type of trance, and he didn't seem right that day or the next day when I saw him. And I spent many hours with him both those days. Well, if it helps Jack, I'm in agreement. We didn't ask for it. Of course, Jack wanted it. But, you know, most people that are sick won't admit to it. We hope the appeals court will read all of the appeal now and really give him a reversal. That's the only thing that would make me happy. And we get a new trial. If there's a God above, justice will be gotten for Jack.
Mr. Ruby was taken to the operating room and under local anesthesia had a tube inserted into his right chest to allow more complete removal of the fluid. Then a lymph node biopsy was performed under local anesthesia. The lymph node revealed tumor on microscopic examination. Mr.
Sir, was the lymph node malignant or benign?
This was a malignant.
This was a malignant tumor.
I mean, his immediate outlook is good, but the long-term outlook is the one that is guarded.
Could you elaborate a little? Will he be able to stand trial in the next month or so?
At the present time, I would suspect not.
I saw Jack last evening at about 6:15 to before 7 o'clock.
How was he then?
He looked very weak and appeared to me to have lost a lot of weight. He appeared also to be weak, as I say. And we talked fairly strong.
What was the last thing?
What he believed, yes, I know what he believed.
What about the conspiracy?
That he was not connected in any way, in any fashion with anyone, in connection with any conspiracy whatsoever. That he acted upon the spur of the moment while there
there in the basement of the City Hall under the emotional circumstances of that tragic weekend here in Dallas. He just happened to be there at the right time, or for him the wrong time. With the defendant dead, there are no charges, and within a matter of, I'm sure, days or weeks, Mr. Wade's office will file a motion with the court to dismiss the charges. And I think it's significant that if there is anything good about Jack's death, at least from his standpoint, he died not a convicted man.
Certainly, we are here to try to do our best to shed light to the commission in every possible way.
Bob, would you agree with that?
I've asked you not to ask him anything at this time, and I'm sure that you will.
Fair enough.
Will
Well,
by
that
that.
tomorrow, definitely, Mr. McKenzie. Will Mr. Oswald say something to us when the hearings conclude?
I would say that he will not be in a position, nor will it be appropriate for him to make any statement to the press until such time as the report is made to the President and prepared by the Commission.
Mr. Lane, you've been hired by Mrs. Marguerite Oswald to defend her son in front of the Warren Commission. Could you give us some details on that?
Well, yes, I think that it was a disgraceful thing in terms of the total destruction of his rights when he was in custody, up to and including, for instance, killing while in police custody in the basement of the Dallas courthouse. But in addition to the civil liberties aspect of this case, there are some very serious doubts, troubling doubts, in reference to whether or not Oswald was involved in any way in the assassination. I think that all Americans have the right to know what took place on November 22nd, 1963. The only way we ever discover what actually happened under our system of law is when evidence and testimony goes through the crucible of cross-examination.
You do feel then that perhaps Lee Oswald is innocent of the charge of having assassinated President Kennedy?
Well, like all good Americans, I believe that, as the law tells me that I must, that a person is innocent, presumed innocent, unless proven guilty. Oswald has not been proven guilty. In addition to this overall presumption, there are some glaring holes and inconsistencies in the case against Oswald as presented by the District Attorney of Dallas, Henry Wade, just after Oswald had been killed in the Dallas courthouse basement. For example, Mr. Wade told us that the taxi driver who took Oswald from the scene toward his home was named Darrell Click. And Darrell Click was a taxi driver who drove Oswald. It turns out there is no Darrell Click who was a taxi driver in Dallas. I checked with the monopoly, the city transportation company, and in Dallas, and they said there is no Darrell Click who's employed as a taxi driver. This is one of the small inconsistencies. There are major ones. Mr. Wade stated to the whole nation on television that he had the murder weapon. It was a Mauser, a German Mauser. The next day, after the FBI revealed that Oswald had purchased an Italian carbine some months before in March, then for the first time Mr. Wade discovered that the murder weapon which he had then was not a Mauser, but it was an Italian carbine.
Do you feel the Warren Commission will bring out? What aspects of the case do you feel will be brought out by this presidential commission?
I'm hopeful that everything relating to this case will be brought out by the Warren Commission. I think all Americans, and with very good reason, have every confidence in Chief Justice Earl Warren. I am a little troubled to read in last weekend's newspaper a statement by Mr. Rankin, who is counsel to the Warren Commission, stating that they are not interested in determining the guilt or innocence of anybody. I thought that was going to be their function, to determine exactly what it is that took place on November 22nd. And I think that that's going to have to be clarified.
Do you have any personal views or opinions regarding Mr. Oswald's assassination allegedly by Jack Ruby in the Dallas police station?
One of the things I found most distasteful as an attorney was the tremendous coverage by the media with the leadership of the district attorney and the police authorities of Dallas and the FBI of all aspects of the case against Oswald prior to the time that he was to be tried while he was still alive. I think this is wrong, and I would not myself comment upon any case pending before the court, including that of Mr. Ruby.
Do you feel that Lee Oswald was denied his civil liberties then?
Oh, no question about that. The American Civil Liberties Union stated a little while ago that had Oswald lived, it would have been impossible for him to have secured a fair trial in America. I think that's the most disgraceful situation. I agree with that statement made by the ACLU.
How did Mrs. Oswald approach you about accepting this case?
She called me by telephone from Fort Worth to my New York home and asked me if I could come to Fort Worth and speak with her about a very important matter. And I said I would do that. I arrived in Fort Worth on January 11th, at which time she asked me if I would represent the interests of her son before the Warren Commission. She said that she accepts death, her son is dead, and that's the end of it as far as he is concerned. But that her son left 2 children behind, and she feels that they have the right to have determined for them whether or not Oswald participated in the assassination.
It's been reported that Lee Oswald's wife accepts the fact that he did assassinate President Kennedy, and Lee Oswald's mother has said that she feels this is not true. There must be some mistake.
The attorney, and it is the attorney and the business agent secured by the Secret Service who have been all along leaking statements to the press as to what Marina Oswald thinks and believes. If a defendant were held 48 hours incommunicado, not 7 weeks, but 2 days, and signed a confession, Chief Justice Earl Warren would throw that confession out of court immediately, and on the grounds that it is tainted. I wonder whether Mrs. Oswald's testimony, after being surrounded by the Secret Service and the FBI for some 7 weeks, will also be considered to be tainted.
I would want to see Jack Ruby given life, and when I say life, I mean, again, without parole. And of course, if Mr. Jack Ruby is insane, I sincerely hope that he gets the best treatment possible in our mental institutions.
This commission has functioned in a fashion which totally disregards the rights of the accused. A person charged with a crime in this country is entitled to a number of rights. I think it's quite plain from the medical evidence, but shots were fired at the president from more than one direction at the same time.
What about the revised opinion on after the autopsy showing that they possibly thought the shots came from the rear?
Oh, there have been so many revisions in this case. It's
How are you?
Yes, I was discharged from my job. The sheriff's deputy who was in my home for protected custody went to get my pay. I was working in a rest home but doing private duty for a patient, and this patient would live possibly 2 or 3 years, so it would have been a steady case. However, when he went to get my pay, she cried and the morning nurse cried and said that the lady of the rest home refused for me to continue on the case. I can understand that probably my presence in her rest home might have caused her some grief because she had other patients. On the other hand, it's hard to understand how I should be left without work because I am an innocent victim of this. The way I'm surviving now, gentlemen, I have an insurance policy which was an extended insurance policy on Lee's life of $863, and in contributions from the time that this affair started, I have approximately $900. That is my total income.
Well, you can say this, that at Mrs. Oswald's request, I am representing the interests of her son before the commission for the purpose of conducting an investigation, of securing all of the facts, that I'm totally a free agent in that regard, and the freedom given to me by Mrs. Oswald to release whatever information I secure. That's my role here. Mrs. Oswald is, as you see, an outspoken, independent woman, and she has the same freedom to act on her behalf. That's one of the reasons that I did not represent her before the commission, because I'm not her attorney. I'm the attorney retained by her to represent the interests of her son, and I'm totally free and independent to do so. And you can quote me, I know you will do that accurately, in terms of everything that I have said. And you can quote Mrs. Oswald quite accurately in terms of everything that she has said. He owned a rifle. Marguerite Oswald stated that after she came out, after Marina Oswald came out of the police office, Marina said to Marguerite, "Mama, they asked me if Lee owned a rifle, a gun, and I told them the truth. I told them Lee did own a rifle. And then, Mama, they showed me a gun and asked me if it was Lee's." And Marina continued, "I told them that I did not think that that gun was Lee's. It looked different from Lee's gun." I think that the change in testimony here, accomplished as a result of protective custody and the presentation of one side of this case by the FBI and the Secret Service on a regular basis for some 9 weeks to Marina Oswald, is a classic example of brainwashing and has resulted in Marina now making statements very different from the statements which she made when she was first taken into custody. And I would like to see the exhibits and present evidence which is in my possession, which I believe proves rather conclusively that Lee Oswald did not fire a rifle on November 22nd.
What is that evidence?
He's saying he's innocent?
Well, I don't know if anybody is innocent. I know that the case which has been presented against him is full of falsehoods and contradictions. And I know that right now in the office of the Dallas District Attorney is a paraffin test which shows that Lee Harvey Oswald did not fire a rifle on November 22nd, 1963. I know that because I have a photostatic copy of that document.
Mr. Garrison took his own life just a week before that arrest was to have been made.
In understanding that he has taken, he did take his own life. Mr. Lane, in view of the latest developments, especially in New Orleans, wonder if you could tell us what you think about this new investigation started by Mr. Garrison.
I think it may very well be the most significant event in terms of an investigation since the assassination took place. The rest of us, evidently, Mr. Garrison, is a bit more curious than the Commission was.
How do you think you can help Garrison, or how do you plan to help him?
Well, I've been at this now for more than 3 years. I've made many trips to Dallas, 9 trips now. We've had a squad of independent volunteer investigators who have gone to Dallas, more than 25 now, for the last more than 3 years. We've compiled a mass of information. Some of it led to dead ends insofar as our investigation was concerned because we could not go any further if the witness refused to speak with us. I'll make all of this information, everything I have, everything I know about this case, available to Mr. Garrison. He seems to be interested in the matter, and I hope it will be of some use to him.
Mr. Tannehill, what in your opinion would have been the result of a trial had Oswald gone to trial?
Well, had Oswald been salvaged and survived their embolism, surgery at Parkland Hospital, in my opinion, under Texas law, a trial judge trying him, at best, would have had a weak circumstantial evidence charge to give to the jury. But in my opinion, he wouldn't have had that. He would have been forced to instruct the jury to return a verdict of not guilty on the ground of insufficient evidence, because under Texas law, Article 714 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, a wife cannot give evidence against her husband, nor can she give leads, at least to the development of evidence against her husband. And the primary evidence that was so damaging against Oswald, connecting him with the rifle, all came from Marina Oswald. She gave it all with him, and that left the state with pretty naked so far as having any incriminating evidence against him is concerned, by striking her testimony and the leads of evidence that was developed as well her leads.
Do you find that, Mr. Tannehill, how do you characterize the New Orleans investigation?
Well, I feel that it's a political project entirely on behalf of the district attorney, because the material that he is going into and has gone into has all been gone over by the Warren Commission investigation, and they deemed it of no value and rejected it. He does have one witness that they didn't come forward with this very striking, dramatic testimony that he gave, and that's Flora Russo that he had hypnotized, I think the day before he testified. And whenever you put a witness under hypnosis, you destroy his credibility as far as I'm concerned, and there's a purpose for putting him under hypnosis.
You
the United States government. I'd like to add a comment, if I could, on another subject that was brought up earlier. There has been no significant new evidence presented to any federal official that I know of, and until such evidence does appear, in my judgment, the conclusions and the recommendations of the Warren Commission are valid today. If any public official anywhere in the country or any individual citizen has any information, new, significant evidence, I would hope as a public responsibility they would send it to the Attorney General so that he and our other officials could analyze it, and if it's significant, something could be done about it. I can't judge the alleged reasons why Mr. Garrison doesn't want to turn it over, but I am amazed that any public official, any place in the country, would refuse to cooperate with the federal government in this regard. This tragedy of November 1963 involved the whole United States,
a massive effort was made by federal, state, and local authorities all over the country to try and find out what happened and why it happened.
Expand just a little bit on your discussions about lack of cooperation between your office and the federal government and how they're standing in your way.
Oh, I have no complaints. You can hardly really expect these federal agencies that are involved with concealment of fundamental information about the assassination to cooperate with us. I don't expect it to be like expecting a man who's just robbed a bank to cooperate with us in the investigation of the robbery. I understand their problem. It doesn't make them right, but I really don't expect any cooperation.
Is a willing witness and a cooperative.
I don't think Newsweek really justifies as much comment as I've made.
Are you going to bring Mr. Bob up eventually? The case has really been hurt. Your investigation of the assassination has really been hurt by this lack of cooperation with the federal government.
Well, I don't want to complain about it because, again, I can't expect too much from parties in the case. But I'll say that it certainly has been a cause of delay, but as to preventing us from being successful, there's no chance in the world. I'm sure that they think they can, but they're wasting their time.
Mr. Harrison, do you think that the federal agency...
Number one, are you getting all of your witnesses to take lie detector tests, sodium pentothal, and hypnosis? Number two, how much involvement does the CIA have in this?
That's question number one. We started off with the naive intention of requiring witnesses to take these objectifying tests in order to assure ourselves that there was no question about the truth. Almost immediately, to our astonishment, we found that when we used truth serum and hypnosis, that it was used against us, and we were suddenly described as monsters hypnotizing the witness. And at that point, we said, forget it. In other words, there's no use wasting our time. If they think our efforts to objectify our witness are something sinister, then we just don't have time to prove it. So we give lie detectors now to witnesses we think are lying in the usual way that other jurisdictions do. Apparently, people are happier when you do it.
The CIA or the FBI to answer the charges that they've taken the Fifth Amendment. Do you expect them to answer these charges, in that in the past they've always remained closed-mouthed about such matters, or any matter for that matter?
I don't know, honestly, I don't know what they could say in this case, because...
do you expect them to say anything?
If you excuse the expression on television, they've been caught with their pants down. In other words, they have to know that what I'm saying is true. And it's just like the picture that I pointed out last week that CIA had faked, sent to the Warren Commission. Every American in this country can look in volume 16 at Exhibit 237 and see the fake picture, which is described as a picture of an unidentified man. And they can't answer because there is no answer.
Some time ago, you said in the Petroleum Club, we have solved the assassination, we know who did it. Do you still stand by that statement?
Well, there's no question about that, but we have a small problem of corralling all the evidence in order to be able to go into the courtroom. It's a standard problem for prosecutors, and we're in the evidentiary phase now, but there have been no changes at all on the evaluation we reached months ago.
Do you have enough evidence now to go to trial?
Well, if I answered that, I shouldn't be distant to Congress.
Any member of the CIA to hear this?
I'm sorry, I can't comment on plans in that way. I have to talk in generalities. I can say what
Wouldn't it be advantageous for the grand jury to hear from Richard Helms, the director of the CIA?
It would be advantageous if we were to hear from him, but again, I don't know what he would say.
Would they expect
you know how to get him down here?
Would they expect the same thing to happen with Mr. Helms that happened this morning with Mr. Kennedy?
I would have to guess that, but again, there's no way for me to say in advance.
Legally, is there any possible way for you to get agents down here into Louisiana?
Well, since that is the subject coming up in court next week, I'd rather invite you to next week's show and see the answer. What do you say, Sam?
I ask you, Mr. Garrison, if you had it to do over again, would you launch another investigation?
Yes, I would have to, because once you know that something was hidden, once you know what happened, then you have no choice. But I would say that I would do it with a great deal of reluctance, because it never occurred to me that so many people would take it for granted that I would lie about such a subject. But now that I've discovered that a large segment of the American press takes it for granted that you're automatically a liar because you're elected to office, I would go in again, but I would go in with more reluctance.
Senator Long to help you get the Senate investigation that you've called for on this.
No, I'm not going to ask the Senate to do anything. No, the thing I said the other day, to clarify that, was I hope that the American people will call on Congress to do something, because I think there should be a congressional inquiry of this collusion by government officials. But if the American people are not interested enough to call on the members of Congress, that's their business.
Do you feel you're violating the court guidelines by commenting on the case today?
You got to be kidding.
Do you feel that any kind of investigation by the Senate or Congress will come out of your investigation?
I can't really say. There's no way for me to guess.
What do you think of the treatment you're getting from the news media?
Now, who writes your questions? Your switchboard operator? I feel like it.